the angelic being that you really are now with it, that you're reunited. And it's immediate and instant awareness that this is going to take you both on a journey. You will lead each other, though the Christos will really guide you both. The Christos it will be who will create an elevator of pale liquid light for you both to travel on. Take the hand of your 8-year-old self now, still in a teardrop of silver light, big enough for both of you to travel in. I want you to look upwards because your teardrop shape is still surrounded by the silver sphere. But in looking up immediately above your heads, you'll see a shaft or a tunnel opening in the sphere. This really represents the central vertical column of your own body. As you look at it, your 8-year-old self helps you to expand your own consciousness and your relationship with this. It seems to know and understand what together you're about to do. Continue to look upwards, and as you do, feel a gentle pull from the opening of the tunnel above your head. Allow yourself to feel the pull of it, and in your own time, experience a floating feeling. And then notice that you both are actually floating upwards, slowly and gently. As you make this journey, you'll notice that you'll pass through a pale silver field of liquid light, surrounded by bands of colored light. The first one that you come to is crimson. It doesn't touch you, and you don't want to be touched by it. But you pass through this tunnel of colored light. As you go through it, feel what this colored frequency means to you. This connects you to the D1 planetary kingdom. And here there is information for you, the first level of information that you may ever want to revisit. But here, what forms, what elementals wish to speak to you? If you have a feeling that that is so, make a note and plan to come back. You keep on floating upwards, gently and slowly, holding the hand of your 8-year-old self. And you come to the next level, which is soft silver orange field within the tunnel. The light is still not touching you. And here you may identify with the plant and the animal kingdoms, and very much issues that are in connection with your emotional body. Here is where your own emotional connection is at its fullest, and where it can be best made and remade, healed and developed. Continue moving upwards, and this time you come to a soft silver yellow field, still not touching. This is the place of the mental body and the solar plexus. You wait here, pause here for a moment. Feel what you're surrounded by. It's likely that much distortion and confusion is found around you here. This is the place the blockages of your DNA exist. This is also your power center. This is the place of control issues and conflict. This is where you go to find them and heal them. If you happen to be noticing intense yellow around you here, it's showing you that you need more Christos frequency before you revisit. It's important to combine the silver with the intense yellow if you're to return here to address some of these issues. We move gently on upward now into the field of pale silver green. This is the place of the crossing point from density 1 to density 2. Allow this pale silver green, swirling all around you both, to touch you, to touch your skin, to feel it as if a layer all over and around your body. It seems to have a life of its own. This is the last part of you that you both remember before your higher consciousness was shut out at the point of fetal integration. This is the place to come at the beginning of sleep, or for soul travel purposes. This is the place where you would go to, surround yourself with this silver green, in order to assist yourself to remember dreams in the meditative state. Continue to float gently upward now. The fifth dimension, the electrical emerald blue. Very powerful template which controls the emotions and the connection between the higher and the lower bodies. This is the place of great healing. We won't remain here now. And move on to the level of indigo blue. It's a strange, perhaps murky space. The place of the third eye. This is the place you bring yourself to. Working with your Christos. And you would say something like, on arrival, please help me now to open my inner vision. Or to open it further, if already open a little. You would come to this particular location to work on that particular chakra with your Christos in future, if you wished. We're going now to the violet spectra. And here is a place of massive amounts of information about your soul family. This is the place which contains specific details of this or other lives. And again, you revisit this violet spectrum. Your relationship with your Christos will assist you when you ask to be shown details of other lives, your soul family, and all related information that you may wish to explore. This is a place also where you will receive much practical and helpful detail. We continue our float upwards to the 8th chakra, the thymus, which radiates effectively all around your head. This is a chakra which has been opening over the course of the last several months for everyone, all of the indigos in any case. It's a gold silver band around the head, holds memories associated with density 3, specifically the 8th dimension. And it's here you would come to investigate or explore, understand aspects of your oversoul and galactic identity and your heritage. You could investigate your own personal history here. You could move backwards and forwards in time from this place in a very effective and useful way, as well as an educational one. Move up to the 9th dimension, just opening also. This is represented by dark silver. There's absolutely fascinating data stored here. This is how you direct things with your thought from this place, your co-creator place. This is the peak of the Antakarana pillar, where the connection to your Maharata, D10, 11, 12 frequencies are made. Move on through this field into the field of deep blue-black light. If you wanted to explore your intergalactic heritage, this is the place you would come. You and your 8-year-old continue to float up gently and easily, entering into a field of silver, velvety black light. This extends into space forever and ever. This is the place that is known as the void. Here you begin to explore, if you wished, your first manifest identity. This is the one you came into density originally with, where you came in, whether you came in as an Elohai, Seraphim, Ano Elohim. Any of the founding race patterns will be found in this place. And finally, you're going to make your approach to the Christos template. And at this point, you and your 8-year-old will have a focus about 3 feet above your head at the 14th chakra. And here is where the experience begins to change, because together you experience 2 spiraling vortices of lightweight mercury, or it may feel like sparkling water. Either of the images work perfectly well. You feel this final ascent as a vortex pulling you in. You feel a molecular reaction within your body. You may experience the shock of a watery feeling all around you, above and below the surface of your skin. And here is a place where really you just simply let go and allow this level to draw you ever closer. And the more you do, the more readily you'll move through to what lies beyond this point. Continue to feel this watery feeling whirling around you as both of you make ready to reach D12. tingly and buzzing, vibration all around you. And you come onto what would appear to be a silver platform or a plateau. At first you don't necessarily see anything, but you're aware that you're standing on something quite firm. And you offer a greeting to your Christos self, regardless of whether anything presents or meets you. See yourself and your 8-year-old child sit on a silver platform, a bench. A silver-colored sofa would work just as well. This is a place you would go to see or feel yourself, beyond ideas, beyond beliefs, beyond thought, beyond any aspects of density. Every breath you take here absorbs frequency directly into your cells, which can be brought back to your physical body. Every movement you make, your own 8-year-old child version of yourself also makes. Now, whilst you're here, and whenever you visit this place, remember that on every inhale, you bring silver frequency in through the temples of your head. And as you do it there, you're effectively pulling frequency into the temples of your physical head here. As you do it, it moves to the center of your skull at the pineal. As you exhale up there. So inhale it in your temples up there, you're drawing it in through your temples here. As you exhale it, you're actually accreting it or building it up in your pineal gland in your skull here. And this is a good technique to work to develop. This is a living light connection. Now, you continue to breathe the silver frequency in through your temples and be aware that as you exhale, you're drawing it back to your physical body down here. Regular practice of this will produce a noticeable increase in Kundalini, which will last for anything from 4 to 5 hours. Will give you a short, sharp build-up in Kundalini should you ever need to do this. Now, you came here to find a Maharic contract, the one common purpose shared by all 1,720 aspects of yourself, to experience a set of cognitions of books on books, books about books, books beyond books you've ever known before. So imagine yourself and the child that is with you, surrounded by beautiful ethers. And allow your focus to clear. And as you do, out of the ethers you will find emerges a pale silver person, a wraith-like figure, a guide, the Christos, which is you. And the Christos figure approaches you and greets you. And if you ask it, in this very moment, it will present you with a program of your own initiation in the form of a crystalline structure. You reach out, both of your palms face up. And in this moment, you will receive a crystalline form. It is entirely peculiar to you, as personal as ever you could wish it to be. This is a gift from your Christos in this moment of the greatest magnitude and gravity, taken in the form of a crystal, and contains all details, or further details if necessary, of your own avatar contract. Complete the expression of gratitude for receiving this gift in whatever way you feel is appropriate right now. Bring that crystalline object towards your own heart center. Feel yourself clasping it to your own body there. And if you can, imagine a sort of dual sense of you having that feeling against your heart center here, without necessarily holding any crystalline form here at all at the moment. Under private circumstances, you could remain in this space for as long as you were moved to do, and in time, you would doubtless enjoy long and animated conversation with your Christos self. But for now, we will bring you and your 8-year-old version of yourself back into this room. So, very slowly, together with your crystal gift, and bearing in mind that as you travel back very slowly, the crystal that you've just received, or the crystalline form that you've just received, will absorb more crystalline structures as you move back down through the levels, collecting elements, information, further practical gifts from the oversoul level, the soul level, those things associated with your fetal contract or incarnational template, instructions that you left for yourself. Move slowly down through the levels, moving down from the 14th chakra, comfortably down into the crown, not too quickly, moving down through the standard 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, back into the tailbone. Now, take the crystalline structure, visualize it in your physical hand, and I want you to move the palm of your hand around to your tailbone. Put the palm of your right hand holding the crystal that you receive from your Christos self into the space in the area of your bottom where the tailbone is. I want you to pull Maharic frequency from the earth core all the way up to your heart center. Deep breath. Expand it as a sphere in the heart center and push that sphere of silver energy down into your palm, activating the crystal and all possible DNA strands at this time. This action will further enable you to access the data that the crystalline structure you have received will be eased, and also in relation to your own DNA activation. What you have received will reflect a particular occasion in which your choice to be at one with God, and your choice particularly to find more of your own angelic self, will be accelerated and fully realized. Just breathe easily now, with a minute or two for you to reflect on your own personal experience, or any impressions of the nature of the information or the contract that you've just received, so that you commit them to memory, and so that you can use them to revisit this space in future.
Conference. Alrighty. How'd you like that? Did you feel movement with this? Imagine playing with that for if you had like an afternoon alone in your room, where you just had places to explore. This particular technique is very good for becoming your own teacher, where the different parts of your own consciousness begin to show you things and begin to open things for you, your own Christos self as your guide. We're going to get this put on tape as soon as possible, so they're available. And there's a short version in writing, so we can probably get you that, like tomorrow or whatever. That was one that it's not officially in the Dance Life program, like there will be the set that go with Dance for Life. This can be used with it, or in just on its own, or with other ones as well. Thing for you. They take your power away and pretend that they have your answers for you. All right, you have your answers. We have information that belongs to all of us, that we have a job that we've been commissioned to do, which is to translate, so it's easier for everybody to get their hands and their brains on it. The rest belongs to you. We're just here in service to you, and in service to the Christos mission. So I just want to make that very, very clear for the people, particularly the people who are new. This is not a guru movement, and it never, ever will be. And hopefully, if we do our job well, you'll never, ever feel you need a guru or a guardian angel again. Guardian angels can be your friends. A guardian friend is fine, but an angel, guardian angels, and those kind of things, so people are taught to give their power to. Oh, the angel will fix it, or this one will fix it, or oh, that one will save me, I don't have to worry about learning this. This stuff is totally disempowering. It's an insult to you because it's saying you're a pathetic, lowly little thing, not much more than an animal. And of course, animals need somebody to take care of them because they can't think for themselves. If you do well with these programs, you'll eventually get it, where you'll look at that kind of stuff and say, all power to you, nice angels up there, the ones that are actually, doing well. But I'll be your friend, but I'm an angel too. I don't need you to fix things for me. I know how to do this for myself. When you encounter teachings like the Lord of the Rays, the Masters of the Rays, and this kind of stuff, oh, the Masters of Karma, they'll fix it for you. The Karma Lords, there are some things to teach about these. Well, if you become a Karma Lord yourself and you know how to fix your own, you don't need another one to do it for you. If you become a Master of the Rays within your own being, you do not need a master who is manipulating the rays to manipulate those rays in your being. So there's a whole shift in consciousness. You'll find yourself, it's almost in retrospect, you start to get it more. Because once you get that lesson and you realize that, hey, I have all of these things inside of me. I don't need to put my authority, that's really mine, out on somebody else to fix it for me. I don't have to be scared. I don't have to worship. Worship. You don't have to worship anything. Honoring the worship is different than worship. God is real. God is a being. God is beyond form. God does not need you to worship. What God really would like would to have a conscious co-creationship relationship with you, a loving, open friendship. Think of children. What if you were a parent and you had a child and you raised that child up until the child wasn't a grown-up, and the most fulfilling type of relationship you can have with a person who used to be your child, and will always be your child, but they're not a baby anymore, is a friendship where you learn they teach you things too. You learn and grow together. You're friends. This is the type of relationship that God really wants. It doesn't want subjugation. God doesn't want you to bow down and pray and beg for forgiveness because you're a lowly, pathetic, sinful thing. This is a bunch of nonsense that we've been fed, that has manipulated us and kept us scared and begging for a long time. So if we work with these programs, we'll progressively come into our own power, where we know God lives within us. God is a part of us. We are a part of God. We don't need to play those little power trip games. When we talk about the Manau tomorrow, the Manau force is the God force that's in our cells and in our bodies. And it's much more than that. So when we get into tomorrow's things, we'll talk more about that. I just wanted to point those things out to you, especially because there's some new people in the group. This is not one of those self-proclaimed savior groups that, we'll take you off on spaceships and you'll be fine. We will teach you what it takes to go through stargates. Whether or not you ever get through one is going to be between you, yourself, your avatar, and what you came in with as far as the karmic imprint. We will give you the teachings that will allow you to have the knowledge you need to work through those issues with yourself. But we will not ever promise to save you, but we would do our best to help if we could. If it ever went into crisis or anything like that, we would do our best to round you all up and say, okay, whatever level you're at, amplify it as much as you can, because here's what we have to do, here's where we have to meet, pickup is at, whatever. If it went into that, we would, be in service to you that way, but we would never, ever lead you to believe something that wasn't true. These people that say, oh, we'll save them, we'll save you, just believe in this being or that being, and that one's going to save me and get me through, and the whole bit. They can't make those promises because they can't take your DNA template out of your body. They can't fix it. You have the power to fix it. So it's very sad for people to put their whole trust in a being that seems to have some knowledge and they seem to be enlightened, and that being promises them salvation. And then they find, if, say, they're on a planet and pole shift happens or something, all of a sudden they're still sitting there waiting for the spaceship to come, or waiting for so-and-so guru to hold their hand and take them someplace safe. and so doesn't show up, and the ships never fly. There is a very deep sadness, not just for the person who has experienced this type of thing. There's a betrayal factor that happens that can really be soul crushing. It can really, really put a person's soul into a space of having a major mistrust pattern that will come with them in the next incarnation and the next experiences that they have. We will not lead you or set you up for that. And when you go into a situation of teaching people yourselves, remember that. Because anybody that tries to play overlord to anybody they're teaching is not teaching our program. I don't care what lip service you're giving to it. And I've met a few that have been doing that. They're actually pulling power plays with people, and they are manipulating very subtly people into a pecking order type of situation where certain people aren't allowed to speak, certain people aren't allowed to do anything if that leader person says they can't. This is not our teachings, even if it's being put under the guise of our teachings. And I just want to make that clear, because you're going to see more and more and more of this, because there are Nephilim at this point that are infiltrating the groups, and they are attempting to play this little subtle power play game. Get the trust, seem like they're, right there with, teaching the teachings, and all of a sudden you'll find that, wait a minute, what am I doing with my power? What are they having me do with my power? I don't remember that in any of the books. You have to watch for this now as you move into the times that are coming, because there's more of this happening. And I just wanted to make that statement on behalf of all of us, and all of the regents that are here that already know this, that these are the freedom teachings. And that means there may be a hierarchy of responsibility, who has what jobs in a particular group. It's a cooperative. But there is not a hierarchy of who you're supposed to hand your power over to. You keep it, it's yours. You share it only when you want to, and don't ever let anybody take that privilege away from you, because that's when you start to become a sheep instead of your own shepherd. And we don't breed sheep. We breed shepherds, people who are shepherds of themselves. All right? And people who don't, shepherds, who are sick of being shepherds, don't want sheep either. So you teach other people to be their own shepherds. So I just wanted to share that with you. It's getting late now. We're about, I think, actually we balanced out good. We're about 15 minutes late, and we're 15 minutes over. Okay. Anyway, we'll be back tomorrow morning. Recap really quick. 10 o'clock will be the level 1 and 2 ordinations. 10:30? Is that where you're going to do Amethyst, Emerald and Amethyst Awakening? Okay, and then we will start, program about 11 o'clock. This course to someone else. The progression of the charts that I'm going to put up, and I'm going to go through them quickly after I go through this, and this is a new one that you haven't seen yet. After I go through this, then I'm going to go through them quickly, but just enough so you see how I sequence them if you're going to teach this, like those things in relation to Dance for Life, and also to make the connections between the things that we're going to talk about that I'm going to discuss a little bit here and the things you're already familiar with. You're familiar with chakras and you're familiar with Cathara grids and those kind of things. And you're going to learn through this afternoon what a radial body is and basically what it does. We're going to learn something called the transduction sequence. That's the sequence that primal life force currents pass through to literally through these parts of your anatomy and the planetary anatomy and the galactic anatomy to get down to the point where they pop out into your hologram. All right, so we're going to see a more advanced version of the transduction sequence that was originally introduced in Cathara in very simple terms. So we'll see a bit of that so we understand where the radial body fits in to this process. Then we're going to discuss Vecca codes. Now, it's interesting. We started getting the Vecca codes in September, I believe it was, and it was like, here, use this, right? Okay, what does it do? It does this. How does that work? You'll get it later. Well, we finally are getting the information. In fact, the Calgary workshop was where they started to give us some paperwork on what the Veccas do. And that's when we learned about the fact that we have a radial body, which was nice to know, because the Vecca codes work directly with the different levels of the radial body. And the radial body is your manifestation machine. This is the part of you of your consciousness that connects to the universe in all the different levels, that connects right down into your cells, into the nucleus of your cells. And the reason people on this planet for many thousands of years have lost their direct ability for direct manifestation, where you can think a thought and make it go, and it pops out in reality, We used to be able to do that. The human race had that as a natural attribute. We were created in the image of our Creator. And our Creator was consciousness, is consciousness. And we are consciousness, and we were given the same thing as our Creator has, which is the free will ability to create. And this creation process, how we create our hologram, is the same process by which Source creates the hologram, the larger hologram of the cosmos. So we're going to begin to learn what the basic process is here in creating our hologram and what has gone wrong. Because obviously, if it was that easy, none of us would be doing what we're doing probably. We'd all have our own little islands or little countries, beautiful little planets all to ourselves probably, you know. We'd have the planet of the cat people that like cats and the planets of the dog people that like dogs, and they'd visit each other sometimes, and then plant people, you know. If we could all just make it go. And most of us are so tired at this point. We've been on this planet for a very long time. Indigos and humans have been repeatedly incarnating here because they made a commitment ages ago to fulfill the Christos realignment mission on this planet. And it's taken a lot longer than any of us expected when we raised our hand for that job, right? But a commitment is a commitment. And the human beings were, to begin with, before they entered densities, they were ascended masters, and they came in as a team to help. Indigos are also. So it's interesting, we've actually taken on the conditions that we were hoping to help the others heal. We let ourselves fall flat on our faces so we could learn what that meant, so we could feel what a consciousness went through in that state, so we could find out how to fix it, and so we could understand and maintain the love with the others who fell and could do horrible things. So we've learned a lot in the time we've been here, but most of us are very, very tired. Just like, okay, can we do game over, like, with this already? Can we get on to the next game, you know? Because it's just, after a while, a victim-victimizer for, like, 250 billion years, it gets old after a while. Been there, done that. Can we do something else now? Well, this is the time period that we all knew would come when we entered manifestation here. We knew this time period would come. It was a time period when what's called the Phantom Matrix healing experiment was going to be over. And we are in that time frame now. It's a time frame when no matter how far we fell and how lost we got, we were going to let ourselves remember who we were again. And we were going to reclaim the knowledge that was ours so we could heal ourselves and then assist in healing any of them from the Phantom Matrix that wanted to be healed. This is why the teachings are being brought back now in this time frame. This is why the Christos founders races and the Janus Ascended Masters are bringing back the high teachings, the real high-level teachings. The teachings that have been on this planet for the last, especially since 9558 BC, have been 99% Ruby Order teachings, which are Anunnaki teachings. They teach a very limited system because they can't access past D11.5. To them, that's the end of their universe. And it's a reverse matrix universe. They don't teach you that part of it. They teach you how to ascend in the Phantom Matrix. They teach you how to go into an astral body that doesn't have flesh matter like this one, and they call that ascension. That is not what full ascension is. That's actually descension. That's falling down in the pit. What we are teaching are the original teachings that their teachings came out of and got twisted from. These are the original teachings that belong to everybody. They belong to all of the Christos races. And I'm at this point, with the information that's coming through now, there's an excitement, because each level there's always an excitement, like, ooh, I remember that from way back when. This is important. This is the next step in getting our power and our memory and our beingness back. But this time, with the release of what's called the Manau codes, this is where we begin to get back our ability directly of direct manifestation. It's not going to come all at once. Poof, there you go, you're fixed. But we're going to be able to begin a massive healing in our own bodies, which is fascinating because most of us don't realize how mutated the life forms on this planet really are. When you start to realize that hydrogen atoms that hold like DNA together don't have neutrons, and neutrons are the things that open up to let the other frequencies come in so the cells can blend with the ones from the next harmonic up so you can turn into light and then pop up someplace else in another universe. We are literally mutated on this planet down to the elemental level, to the core level. Atoms aren't shaped the way they're supposed to be shaped. The numbers of electrons and protons in atoms of all sorts of different substances are not what they naturally would be. This planet is running right now on a reverse base 4. That's 4 subfrequency bands in only 3 dimensions. All right, that's the only frequency that's running here. There's a chart that I'll show you as we move along. This is the one I spent 4 or 5 hours on last night, but it was so important just so you could see it, because it makes a lot more sense when you can see it visually. You can see what was shut off. There's a diagram that's going to be in, by sometime tomorrow, probably before you leave, you will have a chart pack that has these new graphs in it. But this diagram shows an atom, and it shows the natural fields. And literally, analyzes them, shows you which ones are coming from which currents that we're going to talk about, what dimensional frequency they carry, and how they're supposed to be around every atom. Every atom of every substance is supposed to carry these life force energies. And there's a chart that will show you that the 99% of them are like shut off. They're just literally blocked and can't flow into the body systems. That's why we don't remember who we are. That's why our bodies die instead of ascend. So when we start to see really what has been done here, it would be scary if we just got to see what was done, if we weren't given at the same time the solutions. What's wonderful is the solution is not as difficult as it is to understand what the problem was. That's the hard part, identifying what the heck is wrong down here. Now that we're learning how to do that, the solutions are simple. We can use what are called the geomancies, which are the mathematical programs that the templates, the blueprints of matter run on. If we reset the natural templates, it will progressively heal whatever is distorted in them in the lower dimensional fields. That's the whole principle of DNA bioregenesis. You're regenerating the original template well, if we start with our bodies, and that's what's happening with the planet. That's what Christos realignment is. Your Christos is your D12 pre-matter divine blueprint. What your whole being decided when it was going to come in to densities. It had its life plans for all 1,728 of you that were coming in at the same time in different time frames, because all of you have 1,728 cells right now manifest in the densities. You can't get in without doing that. You have to break yourself down and fragment yourself into little packages in order to fit in the smaller dimensional fields, in order to have a linear time progression experience in space-time. So part of what we're going to do is bring back the rest of our cells. We're going to start to become more aware of ourselves as we begin to heal. Now the healing process begins with these. With the dance of the dance programs, let's say, the dance of programs, I'll call them, because we have the dance of life, the dance of love, the dance of freedom, and the dance of joy. Those 4. They all will have the similar structure. They'll have 12 of this, 12 of that, and 12 of something else. In this one, we get the 12 lessons of mastery, and we're going to either, at the end of today, probably go into the 12 attitudes of mastery, which is something that's worth talking about, because attitude is everything when you're trying to work with spirit. And tomorrow we're going to get into the 12 actions. Now the 12 actions are going to be like a 12-step program, of things you can do with yourself and for yourself, some on a daily basis, some on a weekly basis, some on a monthly basis, that will assist you in your process and that will allow you to keep the activation levels that you're getting, allow you to keep them regardless of what's floating around in the ethers out here in 3D as far as frequency fences, and it will also allow you to progressively move forward. And then each of these courses is meant to do that. So we'll start here with the 12 lessons of mastery. Now these are the things that if you were going to have somebody, a little group come over to your house and you're going to teach them, or if you're going to do a big workshop and you're going to teach them, you would start. There's not a lot of paperwork yet, and there will be more. It always expands, it accretes. But you would start with basically introducing the whole paradigm. If they came in, they never saw Cathara, they never saw any of this stuff, they're just a little curious, gee, what's this about? You don't have to get into fallen angelics and, United Resistance War Edicts and things like that. You would start with simply the primal life force field. Now, when we originally began teaching this, when we were learning structure, we started with part-2, part-K, and part-come, the basic units of consciousness that build together to form chelons, that form part-K grids, that build up and form the rest of our structure, our 15-dimensional anatomy, and the universe is 15-dimensional anatomy. Right now, excuse me, we're going to introduce the primal forces. All right? We're going to introduce first, as opposed to just introducing primal structure and primal substance. Before the substance, before the structure, there is the force, or the will, or the intention. the intention of Source, the will of Source, is the force. You have God Source, which is God. You have God Force, which is God willing intention into creation. So when we're talking about the forces, we are talking about living, breathing in their own way, portions of God's consciousness that are literally the foundation, like a blanket of frequency, that allows the rest of structure and substance and structure to be built up. It goes back to, if we think about what we know about part-chi, part-k, and part-cum, those little tiny units, the first building blocks of manifestation that are little tiny scalar standing waves. Well, to make those waves happen, there's a force. If you go back to right before, what happened before there was a part-chi, a part-k, and a part-cum, there was an intention. There was a desire. You could say that there was a void that needed to be filled. A void, a desire to create. Source had a desire to create. In this creation, the first part-chi, part-k, and part-cum were formed. They were, let's say, points of attention within the infinite field of consciousness that is Source. Now, where is this field? Nowhere. Everywhere. There's a concept of something called the no thing, that is everything. Before a thing, before even a part-chi, a part-k, or a part-cum, there is the consciousness of Source. This is a level of experiential reality that you cannot translate into any kind of linear language. It is a touchy-feely one. You have to go there and feel it to know what it means. That's what Ascension's about. Being able to get yourself into density where you came out of there in the first place, but then be able to bring yourself back out and remember the whole trip, where you can feel that progressively. So when we're talking about the forces of consciousness, of God consciousness, that bring the entire hologram of manifestation into being, we're talking about not just playing with energy, not just looking at structures of energy or currents of energy that are there for us to learn how to use again. We are talking about beings of energy that take on the form of the structures we use to create our hologram. These are the co-creation forces. There are three primary co-creation forces that give birth to the first three units, the part-chi, the part-k, and the part-cum. The first three creation sources, parts of God. God's all one big thing, and decided, well, I want to do this creation thing, and I want to try this thing called externalization. So it broke itself up, within itself, into three different perspectives, so they could all look at each other in a certain way. Those three different perspectives are forces of consciousness. They're eternal, they are always there, and if they weren't there, the hologram would collapse and turn into nothing. These forces represent the Divine Trinity. The first Trinity is the Trinity of intention. There is the desire to create, the void of a creation. In the beginning was the void, and then the void became filled. And it was first filled with sound, and from the light and the void, from the sound and the void came the light. Now, before we got void, sound, and light, we had the intentions to have those three things to set creation in motion. The intentions are the being part. The intentions are the raw, pure consciousness of Source that eternally mans those posts, that eternally puts itself into this form, these forms, to be the directing consciousness. When we create anything down here, even if we're creating in our hologram, we're creating subconsciously and unconsciously and creating messes, we're still using the same forces. See, the forces were given to us as a gift. God gave a part of itself to us and to the parts of itself it would send into creation. Those forces were intended to be used within the Christos blueprint, which means in cooperation with the original intention of God. That's what being in the Christos light is about. It's saying, okay, I'm not going to go, take the creation stuff and go, do my own thing, even if God doesn't like it, or even if it's going to harm the universe. I don't care. That's what the fallen angelics have done. When creation was given to us, the ability to experience ourselves, now we are one being. We are all God, everything that's a manifestation. You put it all together, and it's God. And there's more to it than that, too. But we were given the gift, because God wanted to give itself the gift of experiencing what it meant to look at itself, to get outside of itself and be able to turn around and look at itself. That's what this is about. We're learning what that means. God is learning through us and experiencing through us. He was supposed to be a co-creative endeavor, which means cooperation. We weren't supposed to compete. There wasn't supposed to be heavy competition with the will of God versus the will of the other pieces of God that are in creation. There were certain games of understanding that got out of hand, like the victim-victimizer game. When we're dealing with these primal forces, the primal forces of God consciousness, these are parts of God that live inside of you once you open them back up in your bodies. These are portions of God consciousness that are you in the places where you never left at one-ment. The parts of you that are not in manifestation are always there with you eternally. And a lot of times when we first learn structure and those kind of things about, okay, what's our 15-dimensional anatomy? What is the structure through which we're connected to Source? It still seems like Source is up there, out there, through there somewhere, wherever that is, right? It's closer than when you have to go to like a priest or somebody and they say, oh, well, I'll pass the word on because you're so hopeless you can't even talk to God. We've learned that, yeah, we can. God's with us, okay. God's inside of us, okay. And it's like the mind gets it, but the feeling body kind of goes, I don't feel like I'm at one with God. It's like, I'd like to be at one with God. Am I doing something wrong? I know the things now about how that would happen, and I'm trying to do them, but I'm still here. I still can't ascend. I can't even levitate my pillow. If I'm at one with God, what's the problem? Am I having an issue with myself, or I'm mad at myself and I'm not talking to myself? No. After we learn structure, after we learn at least what the basic format is of what parts we have and how we need to learn to use them in order to open that part of our own God consciousness, our direct connection to Source in us, the next part is learning about the consciousness itself, which are the forces. The three forces. The first force is called the Manu, M-A-N-U. The Manu force. And these are the translations of the tonal vibrations that these portions of God's consciousness would have. That's how they translate into the languages down here. They're called other things in other systems where, the whole universal structure is built on different mathematics. They would sound different there. Now, the Manu force is the force of what would be called originally the still point, the first point of attention when Source decided it was going to create. It was going to create this whole thing called a cosmos. The first part of itself that it moved into a fixed point of perception to begin this process is the Manu part. It is the still point within the mind of God, within the soul of God, within the beingness of God. The Manu force is the force that the other two forces that create the Divine Trinity came out of. That is the first one and the most powerful part of the God consciousness. It is considered the Divine Spirit. And out of that came the Divine Mother and the Divine Father, the Divine Sound and the Divine Light, out of which everything else came into creation. So in the beginning, we have the Manu, and out of the Manu, the next thing that came was a vibration, the first vibration, the first particum unit, first point of vibration, which would be the first pre-sound sound. That was also a force. It was a force, a part of God's consciousness. First, God broke a part of itself down into the Manu. Then it broke that Manu down into two other points of focus. The first was the Ire, and that's the Divine Feminine. The Ire forms the sound. At the same time, it wasn't one was created first. They pop into existence together, just like with Partikai, Particade, and Particum. You have Partikai phasing that we've talked about, where you have one Partikai unit, and it breaks itself down into a Particade and a Particum, and it polarizes. Then it comes back up, and it flashes on and off. Well, this is the same thing. These are the first Partikai, Particade, and Particum. But they're alive. They're beings. They're fields of God consciousness. And each one of us are connected to these fields of God consciousness. So once we know structure, the next thing, it's kind of like once you get the wiring done in the house, then you turn on the power and the lights work, right? Hopefully. We are learning now. what that power is so we can turn on the power, our own God power that lives within us. And that power is fueled by one primary intention. And that one primary intention, that all of those parts, and the parts we're going to find out that came out of those, they all function on one primary agreement, one agreed upon intention, a creation intention, that was love. Absolute, unconditional love. We're going to learn, as we move along, we find out about the currents that come out of these. We find out more about these forces that live and breathe within us, and there are parts of us that live and breathe within us that we need to get to know again. There's the one thing that is a fully unified field, the unified field consciousness, field of consciousness that is composed of standing scalar wave grids and all that stuff. The underlying thing that holds it all together is the force of love, the force of vibrational harmonization. Now, interestingly, in the creation front, when the Manau creates the Ire, which becomes the Eros when it comes down lower, which is interestingly associated with the word love, the Ire is the magnetic pull force. It is the current that, if you go into manifestation, that's how you spiral back out. It's the coming back out current. At the same time that the Ire was created, there is its counterpart and its opposite, the Mane. The Mane is the projection outward force. And they are not just forces doing stuff with energy, they're intentions. The Ire wanting to draw together and hold together, while the Mane wanting to go out, having the intention, the desire, the thrust to move outward, to express itself outward, while the other has its desire to express itself inward. And they create together a balance within the Manau force, a balance of push and pull, a balance that if they were perfectly still, everything, nothing, we wouldn't have creation. Creation requires movement of intention within the original intention of the Manau, of the point of focus that God used to create the rest of what we're living right now. So we have the Manau, the Ire, and the Mane. When you put these three things together, they each have a silent sound that if you bring the silent sound out, the Manu has the sound called ek. It doesn't have a K hard sound on it yet. It's ek. It's kind of like the sound electricity makes. When there's a little buzz that electricity makes, it has almost like a ek, 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 almost like a Morse code kind of thing. Well, the first vibration sound of the Manau force is the ek sound. The first sound of, and this is actually the ka sound, does not go with the Ire, even though the Ire was created. When they were created, the Ire stayed closer into the Manau, while the other projected, the Mane project out further. But when we put these sound tones together, we come up with the ek for the Manau, the ka goes with the Mane, because what happens is you have the Manau, it creates the Ire, and then between the two, the Mane forms. So you have the void, the sound, and between the two comes the light. So when the sound tones are used together, you get ek for Manau, you get ka for Mane, and the sha for the Ire. You get akasha. That's what the word akasha means. It's referring to, it's calling upon those sounds. The sounds become very important. As we move through the program that we have today, we're going to learn some interesting things about sounds, and you can tell a lot by words sometimes. We're going to see some very interesting things that are names. They're names that were assigned to, let's say, certain beings, especially in the New Age movement, like the things that are contacting people nowadays. You can start to get an idea of what they're actually playing with, by what frequencies they're messing with. One of the nice things that we're going to learn today is about the 15 rays and the 12 domains. This is the universal structure. And if we understand this, we understood basic structure. We understood there was a primal sound field, and then there was a primal light field, and from that there was a divine blueprint, and from that you have your 12 dimensions down here. Now, behind that are the forces, again, the consciousness fields, the forces and the intentions. So when we get into exploring what we'd call the primal life force currents when we were dealing with them on structure level, these become the living rays of consciousness that we embody, literally combinations of them. And that's what makes up who we know ourselves to be. So we're going to learn a little bit about what they are. So when you teach these things, I'm going to go through these quick, and then I'm going to go back and just flip through the graphs really quick that you've seen before in your Kathara manual or your Templar manual. So you will see how to use these in relation to this discussion when you're trying to connect the forces to the substance and the order that you've gotten before when you're trying to teach somebody. Okay, so we have the Manau, the Ire, the Mane, which is the Akasha. So the Akasha is really, you could look at it as the God seed, but there's actually the seed is the Ire, and the spark is the Mane. So what would you call the whole thing together? Really the closest term, other than using its real sound translation, which is Akasha, you would simply refer to it or look at it as the Godhead. That is the head of the whole thing, the first point of primal creation. It is, some people call it the cave of creation, but that misses a lot. That misses a lot of the fact that this is where a big portion of God's thoughts are focused right now. This is all about thought, because what set this whole thing in motion, this whole unit, this whole cosmic structure, was simply an intention in the mind of God, a desire in the heart of God. The heart of God wasn't a big red thing made of flesh. It was a feeling that had a desire to create. The mind of God wasn't something that had to be sitting in a brain to be functional. It was a knowing that it could create. We're going to begin to feel these realities in our body when we work with the technologies that we're being given now. The Manau codes are the codes of the radial bodies. We'll talk about the radial bodies in a little while. But what the radial bodies do is they open up or close, if they're not working right, these primal force currents. They either close them out of the body or open them up into the body. When you have your radial body working naturally, when your atoms are working naturally, you walk around in a body, in a hologram, and you know there is no difference between you and God. It is a feeling, a knowing. There's no difference. It's like saying, well, that's my thumb, and that lives over there, and that's not a part of me. There's no difference when you get into these spaces of feeling it. And when you feel that, you begin to realize, you look at everybody different and everything. You not only intellectually understand that we're all part of one, and struggle to try to remember that when people are really pushing your buttons and really getting on your nerves and you want to bite somebody. It's a feeling that comes as that knowing comes from the mental body, the D3, strand 3, third chakra, moves down into strand 2, into the emotional body, into the elemental body, where the elements, the little elementals, like the little tiny two-dimensional fairies and things that fly around, that some of them live in your body, they start to get the message too. And then it goes down into your D1 strand, your base chakra. You start to feel it and live it and be it. This is what the steps we're taking now in the program are about: awakening the forces, awakening the Mano, awakening the Ire, and awakening the Mane. Now the way to awaken the three of them is to use the one that has both of them within it. So the Manau force is the one out of which the other two came and which they actually reside within. If you look at the Manau as the void, say a vacuum, within which creation was going to occur, and in the void a vibration was set, a word. There was a void. And then God spoke within the void. In the beginning was the word, which was a vibration. And from the word of God, the light came forth. And from the light came all of the creation of heavens. Now, we're going to get into the 7 higher and 7 lower heavens briefly also, so you see these structures and where they fit. But if we can think of, when we think of the term Manau, there's 2 things that will help us understand it. One is think of a void space. Like we talk about that void space between the harmonic universes. This is where the Manau is stationed. Right? We have it in our atoms as well. If you think of the Manau in terms of a word you've learned through Kathara, which is part-2, the antimatter unit that the other 2 come out of. You could look at the Manau force as the first and eternal part-2 unit. In energy terms, that's what it is, but it's actually the thought before the part-2. It's the thought before the part-2 turned into a vibration. It's the thought of being a partikai and setting it all in motion. We look at the word ire. The ire goes with the particum. It can also be looked at as the divine feminine seed or egg that was in the void or the womb of the Mano. And by the combination of the two of them and the intention to express outward that the Mane intention symbolizes, the Mane would be viewed as the partike, it would be viewed as the divine masculine, and it would be the divine spark, or the sperm that fertilized the egg. It's the light that actually was birthed through the combination of the sound, or the vibration, and the void. These all connect to all of the Trinity things that we've learned of how things go in threes, three sets of dimensions, and all of this. All of this was set by this original, the original Akasha, the original God force intention, the original will of God made manifest. And what's nice to know is it's not something that was done way long ago and it's gone now, and it's just in fond memory. It's there with us. It's the reason we breathe. What they're also referred to as the pause breath, still point, the in-breath, ire, and the out-breath, mane. The in-breath, the out-breath, and the pause breath of God. These are the primal circulatory system of consciousness that moves through us all the time. This is what our heart rhythms are set from. This is what our breathing rhythms are set from. These are the forces that make those things go. So they're not far away at all. Now, okay, so when you begin teaching this, we would start here instead of trying to figure out where to start with your Kathara manual. It's like, well, I could teach them about, do I just follow that structure? What do I do first? Start with the consciousness forces. Before, we didn't have the ability to use the Vecca codes because certain things had to be activated in the planetary grids before you could use them. They are progressively activating now. That's why this information is being given to us. Because now, when we use these mathematical codings, these things that look like symbols, pretty symbols to play with, when we use them, they will actually make the changes they're supposed to now because the planetary grids have them activated in them. And we help to activate them more in the planetary grids when we use them. Now, if we get through the basic three, the basic trinity, the mana, the ire, and the mane, the akasha, right? This, you'll have a copy of this thing. It's just explaining about the in-breath and the out-breath of God, the things I just spoke about. And you can, for the training things, when you're doing the training ones, you can use this, you know, like if you have a video or an audio of this workshop, you can use it if you want to. But you don't have to. You can just use like the basic outlines and remember what you were taught and feel it out for yourself and try to explain it, you know, in your own terms. But the basic trinity, the primal life force field. This is the force, the will of intention. And this is how these three intentions came together in the mind of God to create the whole structure. And of course, once you got that, the intention and the consciousness behind anything that was created, then you would go into primal substance and primal order. But you don't have to do it in as heavy technical terms. And if they want heavy technical, tell them to buy Kathara manual. They can read it there if they want to find out more about, like, you know, really particle phasing and flashline sequences and some of the more complicated stuff. You can tell them a little bit about it, but you can do it easily, you know, more easily by just giving them bits of how those pieces fit together, but focusing on the consciousness, the force, because this is what people miss the most. We need to know the structure if we're going to learn how to wake the force up. But what people go into spiritual development for, why people get spiritual, is because they feel a part of themselves missing. People that feel completely whole don't need to get spiritual. They already are. They don't worry about it. They don't go after it. They just feel it. Whatever their capacity is, they're there. They don't really care because they feel it. When you get on a spiritual path, you're there because there's a void. You're feeling a void, a desire for something that isn't there. And that's what motivates you. So anyway, as we go on, we'll go take them into, from the primal life force fields to emanations of the Akasha. Now, the emanations, okay, the things that emanate outward from the Akasha. And of course, the Akasha being the Manau, the Ire, and the Mane. Right? Emanations of the Akasha. Here we go, this looks familiar. Partikai, Partike, and Particum. And then you simply would, we put that one up real quick? I'm probably going to whip through these really fast just to show them, like, the sequence. All right, I'm going to put this one back up. You'll be fine. I just tend to talk forever. Yeah, I'll put this. Yeah, I might refer back to this one, so let's keep that. Okay, you keep it there. So you would simply go into, I need to look at this one actually while we're doing this, because I want to connect the two. Okay. Yeah, there's something white I can look at. Yeah, that works. Thank you. Yeah, backwards doesn't work. Alrighty. So you'd show them this particular one, and if time holds out for me and I don't collapse first, we should have this sequence, like the sequence of the paperwork that I'm going to go through today and the stuff that I'm going to have to do tonight to have it for tomorrow. You should have this in a chart pack. So you at least have a little booklet that you don't have to pull out your Templar manual and your Cathar manual and start whipping pages all over the place to try to figure out how you're going to make something simple. It'll be a simple enough manual, but it's also the most sophisticated of the teachings that are here yet. So you'd start with simple part-a-kai, part-a-kai, and part-a-come. You have your part-a-kai antimatter units, which are the intention. They first start as the intention of the Manau force. That is the first intention. It creates a thought crystal, a crystallization of idea before it becomes a manifest thing. That's the first part-a-kai, I need to trip over my lips, first part-a-kai, first antimatter unit that is not quite manifest yet. This is the non-manifest part of manifestation. This is the embodiment of the Manau. And from that come fields and fields of part-a-kai units. And the part-a-kai units are a total reflection of the original Divine Trinity. You have the part-a-kai that would represent the Manau. And within the part-a-kai are created the part-a-come, which would be the equivalent of the ire, and the part-a-kai, which would be the equivalent of the mane. So these are the forces of consciousness. This is the dynamic of interaction, let's say thought interaction, that is taking place between the mane, the ire, and the manau. So simply make the connection for them that, okay, we talked about manau, ire, and mane. You can word that another way. You can put that part-a-kai, part-a-kai, part-a-come. And what these things are, these are the first. The part-a-kai unit, being the manau unit, is the part that stays non-manifest. These things become like little light bulbs, and the light bulb analogy is a wonderful way to get a very difficult concept across pretty easy to people who really don't want to know physics. I mean, there are some people that really don't want to know, and we'll get into light bulbs, how if you can help them think of consciousness, the manau, mane, and ire, as taking on a form that resembles light bulbs. All right? The first would be a thought of a light bulb, and the light bulb's not turned on. But then there would be little light bulbs created when it's almost like thoughts, like neurons firing in the brain. Okay? When the manau decides to create, it perpetually repeats its original intention, the original intention of God that it had, which was to create. And one part of it wanted to create outward, and the other wanted to pull that back. That Divine Trinity continually recreates itself. That creation takes place in the form of part-a-kai, part-a-kai, and part-a-come, which are tiny little units of consciousness made out of the forces, the manau, the mane, and the ire. All right? That's what these things are made out of. We called them before units of consciousness. Well, this is whose consciousness they're units of. All right? These are the beingness behind the structure of the manifestation. And as we explained in the earlier teachings, that these form little fixed points of light and sound. First, it's a vibration. When it's in its vibration state, it's actually in the antimatter state. That would be the first. If you compare that to the manau, which is not even quite yet a vibration, it's the thought of a vibration. And then the female would be the first vibration, the sound. You can still compare the part-a-kai antimatter to the manau force and consider it as the thought of vibration. And from that thought of vibration, there comes vibration and oscillation. There comes a standing scalar wave point, a simple little light bulb. A light bulb of consciousness that turns off and goes back into its manau state And when it flashes on, it actually becomes two light bulbs that sit next to each other. And they flash off and on. This is how you can get the concept of part-kai, part-king, part-come across to people. It helps to connect these things, because if they can understand these basic building blocks, the basic units of consciousness that form the structures will make more sense. If you try to teach the structures, oh, you have chakras and you have auric fields and you have these things, it's like, okay, there's something missing. What are they made out of? Right? Well, they're made out of consciousness. Okay. What kind of consciousness? Whose consciousness? Where'd that come from? You know, this is a way to try to connect right back from where the no thing is, other than the desire and the intention, in the mana, the mane, and the ire, right down into the structure, where you can learn enough about your structure to remember how to use yourself, your parts, so you can get your direct life force back into your bodies. All right, so that, okay, you have this field of little light bulbs that turn off and on at different rhythms. Some go on while others go off. And where these flashes, they're all like fixed. They're actually not moving. They just flash off and on. But what it appears as, because of the sequences and the syncopation of what ones flash when, it actually creates the illusion of movement. When consciousness takes on the form of this grid of light bulbs and begins this little dance of life, where it begins to flash off and on in the sequences that are set by the mathematical programs of the mana, the mane, and the ire, it begins to experience the dance, even though everything is really standing still. We'll talk about terms of spiraling currents, but what's really spiraling is the consciousness. All right? Now, we can use the terms spiraling. We don't have to get, especially if you're trying to teach it to new people, or like people that haven't had any exposure to it. If you get into the concept, well, you have these flowing and spiraling currents, aka that means movement, right? Well, the only movement is this, pulsing, flashing off and on, like the heartbeat of God. It gets a little confusing. Well, I thought the current was supposed to flow, but if it's not moving, how does it flow? Right? It flashes on and off. Picture frozen water going into your body instead of, right? There's a difference. Now, it's worth, if you really want to teach the dance of life, if you really want to teach it where you're going to go into workshops and you're going to have people there, they're going to say, oh yeah, how's that work? You know what I mean? Like people that haven't read anything, that are just curious about what this might be, they're going to throw all sorts of stuff at you. They're going to, questions, you're going to be like, uh-oh. If you don't know how to answer them, you'll lose them, because it's really, if you really want to do, like, if you want to make a job out of it, if you want to do workshops and, get paid for doing workshops where, it's fine to get paid for workshops if you're giving people something that's worth paying for. And unfortunately, most of the time, you're not the one that decides that. It's going to be them, if you're not giving them what they want, which is answers to the questions that they have, and an understanding that they can take and use, they're not going to come back. They're not going to like you as a teacher, and you're going to kind of feel frustrated. So it will help if you take enough time to learn, look through your Kathara manual a bit more. Fix on, what is a flashline sequence? If somebody asked you that, what is a flashline sequence? How many people could answer that right off the top of their heads? That's good. Really? Oh, come on. You're being modest. Yeah, that works. Yep. Flashing off and on of a fixed grid of light bulbs, and each dimension, right, is one line of light bulbs that has one flashing on and off rhythm, and then the next dimension has, D1 would be one line of flashing, D2 would be that line from D1 plus another one, so it would have twice as many flashing on and offs. All right. Now what these flashing on and off things do, this is called, that's a simple way to explain part-kai phasing. Because what is creating the flashing on and off is that. You have that cycle of part-kai phasing where the part-kai goes from being an antimatter, where it's really not in matter, especially when you get up into the higher, like the vibrational fields, the primal fields. It's not even in matter. It's in manau. It's in the thought of being in matter. And then it flashes on. This is your light bulb flashing on and off. So what you are explaining to someone when you're talking about flashline sequences is the sophisticated concept of part-kai phasing, how these primal units of consciousness and substance begin to, before substance, begin to interact with each other while standing still. And there's a pulse of consciousness that keeps this going. And this is why, and this is the verification that God is alive and well. Because if there wasn't a pulse, a movement of consciousness that kept particles phasing, none of us would be here. There would be a field of no thing that had no awareness of itself. There would be no awareness. So anyway, to keep it simple, take people through as much as you can with partikai, partike, and particum, just so they're familiar at least with the terms, because they come up a lot. You know, when you learn more, they do come up a lot, and it does help to understand that they are just a representative form of the divine trinity of the forces, which are the manau, the mane, and the ire. Okay, and the partikai build up, and they begin to, the flash lines start to interact with each other, and they actually begin to spark more partikai units into manifestation, where they accrete, or bring more out of the non-manifest worlds, out of the manau, and out of the ire, and out of the mane. They bring more of like thoughts, like intentions, like vibrations into manifestation, and fill out what we used to be just one thought, fills out to become many similar thoughts. And those thoughts become many partikai, many scalar standing waves that progressively interact with each other. And the more they interact with each other, the more they draw out of the manau, the more they draw out into manifestation. As we move through the teachings today, we're going to get into what the manau and the ire and the mane have to do with your creation process. Because these are your forces, your powers, the powers that were given to you and entrusted to you by God, the part of you that's up there now still. These are the forces that you create with thought. There's a process of using what are called the sacred Surya songs. Sacred movement, Surya means movement, divine movement. Son, P-S-O-N-N, is a divine song that has to do with firing partikai, partike, and particum, or manau, ire, and mane, into manifestation. There's an exercise that we're going to do today, probably toward the end, that is, we're going to learn some magic words. That's what it comes down to. Some more songs. Yes, these are the manau songs. These are the beginnings of activating, doing the tonal activations that bring back those portions of you that are manau, ire, and mane into your body. And they are the commands that if you desire to manifest something, and it takes practice, especially when the first thing you need to manifest is getting your radial body cleared. So when you manifest, you get what you want instead of its opposite. Because there's that extra level of polarization there. So every time we think a thought and say, I'm going to make that happen, you get part of this, and the other part goes the opposite way, and it does something else completely different, and it almost neutralizes what you were trying to create. That was a little setup that was done here on the planet by the fallen angelics. So we literally neutralize ourselves when we try to create. We have a little minimum bit of creative power that's running through, but the rest bounces into itself and demanifests. So we can't, we have a very difficult time directly manifesting stuff with our thoughts. The exercise today, now this was the last thing that they gave me before I finally surrendered and let the computer win, because we were having a battle all night with the computer. But I was glad that I stayed with it long enough to bring this so we'd have this to work with today. There is a string of sound tones, vibrations, that go with each of these primal currents. And I call them primal currents because these are the consciousness that are within and surrounding the things that we have called primal life force currents. These are the life force that's of the currents, that makes the currents happen, that we've talked about before, the currents. Okay, we're going to learn how to begin using, and there's lots of levels to this. This is just the beginning. It's like getting the car keys for the first time when you're a teenager, right? Oh boy, they're going to let me drive the car, I studied enough, and, they know, well, I passed my driver's test, but I got it. I'm going to be able to take it, and they're not going to be with me, and nobody's going to be watching. I can drive the car. This is like one of those kind of things where it's the beginning. It's like kind of saying, yes, you can drive the car for 2 hours. Be back, and if you haven't crashed into anything, you might be able to go again. These are the beginning exercises. If we were given sophisticated ones, it would be so sophisticated we couldn't even make the sounds yet. There are sounds we will learn how to make. The more we work with these sounds and begin to integrate and wake these up inside of us, more sounds will come. We'll start to hear the silent symphony that's taking place around us, and we'll start to feel it as well. But By the time we get to this exercise, we'll know what a radial body is, we'll understand what it is that we're doing, and then we'll get to start to have some fun. And what's going to be really funny is I'm supposed to teach this to you, and I just got them down on paper too. So it's going to be one of those where you put them up there and go, ah, hey, ho, no, that's a small a. Okay. So we'll learn these together. And what's interesting, the power comes when they are memorized. And there's a very specific sequence to using them. One is for embedding the thought you want to manifest into the man-now. The man-now is a part of God that has given itself to you and says, I will co-create with you, whatever you put in me. Yes, this is why things like fallen angelics and phantom matrices and those kind of nasty things can happen, because it was given in complete and utter love and allowance. This is why the man-now force can be abused. God allows that, because the man-now force was created of pure, unconditional love, and it gave the gift of free will and the gift of free will choice. So the fullness of the man-now can never be harmed or abused. But the parts of it that run through the lower dimensional fields can be twisted, and it can be used in ways that create harm instead of good. There were ancient mystical schools that were built on, in fact, I think some of them were satanic. They were built on using the man-now in reverse to make stuff happen and to force one's will on other things. And as long as you could hold more man-now power, you could override and, take advantage of someone else. This is an abuse of the man-now power. And eventually that comes back to you with a vengeance. I think it's about 3.5 times. Whatever you put into it, you'll get back. Because the man-now will bounce back to you, whatever it is you created, whatever your intention was. If you're intending loving co-creation that honors other beings, you will find the universe progressively just appears to like you more and more. You'll tend to get more positive feedback coming back to you. Now that doesn't work as well as it's supposed to down here because of the reversals. We talked about the eye of the jackal yesterday. This is a reversing lens that literally takes what should be one beam of consciousness that comes in and splits it and makes it interface with itself and create a static field where the flow stops and it gets blocked. But fortunately, it's these frequencies themselves that will be able to clear and heal this. And it's the process of using them. We don't have to spend like 5 years trying to figure out how to heal the mess so we can use our power. All we need to know is what the power is, how to use it appropriately, how to direct it, and it will do the healing in the using it. So we're beginning now to enter a really interesting space. There's going to be, I can tell, this is going to be probably a very interesting year of each dispensation of the teachings, because first we'll learn to use it this way. And then there will be more and more other ways we can learn to use it. And I can't wait till we have the manifesting money one. I really can't. I know there's going to be a workshop. And I keep asking them. I say, I don't care. I don't even care if we don't ever get any. Okay, if it's like not great to have money, I don't care. Whatever the answer to this is, I just want to know it and I want to teach it. You know what I mean? That's what so many people, that is where the freedom goes right down the drain here. Because if you don't have this Anunnaki created thing, because the money systems are Nibiruan, they were not, humans never ever used money or even barter the way it's used here. Creators who can manifest stuff don't have to. They just make it happen. Poof, it's there. So anyway, I want to move through these. Again, I'm going to move through these fast here, right? I go on my tangents. But, what do they say about the money thing? Well, Ma'a kind of grins at me, and he just gives me this big grin, like, you'll figure it out eventually. So I'm getting the feeling that, and I've learned one of the tricks that I've learned, money becomes less and less of an issue in my existence when I make it less and less of an issue in my existence. I've spent most of my time in my existence. Now, I left home when I was 14 and a half, 15, and I had my own apartment then. I was not even in 10th grade. I dropped out of school in 10th grade, and I worked at what they call junk jobs for quite a long time. When I was 17, I got married and had my first child, and still worked at junk jobs for a very, very long time. And then, of course, all during this time, I was talking to guardians. They never gave me lottery numbers. They never magically fixed it for me. But they talked to me all the time, and they helped me to understand the lessons, why I was allowing the creation to be what it was. There were certain things that if I had let's say, evolved this lifetime, where I was sitting in the lap of luxury and I could have anything I wanted anytime I wanted, and I got to think about what I want. What do I want? What do I want? I didn't. I got to think about what do my kids need? What do my kids need? What do they need? Who needs what? You know, I mean, I didn't get any chance to think about me in this life, and that was good because it taught me some very, very valuable things. So I know one of the tricks to the money thing is getting to the point where it is not an issue. That whatever it is, you need to express something, come money or no money, come hell or high water, you're gonna. And you know that the universe will help you. You can feel it. Yeah. And it's funny, that's usually when the money just appears. Yeah, just out of nowhere, left field, where did that come from? I couldn't have manifested that if I tried consciously. So there's a trick to the money thing, where you set the intention of what you desire, and you trust the universe to find the way and the method. Yes? Excuse me. They go and they're supposed to be in a certain time frame, or I mess up their schedule. So we have about 15 minutes more. We'll do this for 15 minutes, and then we're going to have to break for lunch too, so we don't end up getting the catering people upset with us. Anyway, the money issue, I will leave off on that. I want to do a whole workshop on that at some point, but there are certain subtleties about the whole thing. I understand certain manifestation processes, and I know what works. I know that trust. Put out the intention, and visualize what you want instead of the money. Like, focus on the thing. If it's a house, feel yourself in that house. Look out your window in that house. See the sunshine in your garden. If you want to move to another country, see people wearing the traditional garb walking out your window, right? See the deed of a house in your hand with your name on it. Things like this, okay? That makes it yours here, not just a house you're visiting by accident, like, whoops, I manifested it, but it belonged to her, and I can't live there. You can have those happen, too. Now, there are some other things that have to do with money that go very, very deep. This is why we haven't even really touched a workshop on that yet. It goes back into things that go back. This is the beginning. What we're going to learn this time, this workshop, about understanding what's happening in our atoms. Believe it or not, the whole money system is connected to our atoms. There's something happening, and it has been done on this planet, that was done on Nibiru, that began with using elemental gold in certain ways to transfer certain things. Right now, there's a whole movement to bring back the Nibiruan gem called white powder gold, monatomic gold. This did the same thing that they used money for on Nibiru. The whole money system was created here. There's a whole level of really heavy, deep physics stuff that goes into what this money system is really about. So it's not that money is evil or bad. Money is just an idea. But for us to get to the point where we would, bring you a workshop on how to create money, I would want to have the usual level of detail where I could put all of those pieces together. And I haven't been able to get them all yet. I mean, I have like blocks of history on Nibiru and how it was used to, gold was the original thing, and it was used to literally suck life force out of people and transfer it from one to another. Parents on Nibiru, when they had a child, they had to literally, the government would give them a dowry, and they had to take that gold and charge it. Whoops. Oh, cool. Hello. And charge it. Thank you. And they would literally take the gold, and they had it treated in a certain way. They would take the gold, and the parents would have to hold the golden, like they were coins. This is where coins came from. They made the gold elements flat enough where you could take it and hold it up against the child's chest, heart chakra, so it could suck the energy, part of the life field energy, out of them. And then that gold would be collected. This is where taxes came from. They came from Nibiru. It would be collected and taken back to the elite ones, who would then use it to take that life force, because they had reverse matrices in their DNA, and they had to feed. It was one of their feeding methods. Yeah, I mean, talk about a workshop about money. When they started giving me this, I was like, oh my God, like, oh my goodness, this is like heavy. This is like deep stuff. I got tired after like I think I had about 40 pages on it. And I was like, oh my God, I think it's bad here, go to live on Nibiru. It's like a lot worse. But right now the gold stuff is happening. If you notice, we're not allowed to have it anymore here. Yeah, it's been hidden in certain places that they're called treasuries. There are certain places that there are large amounts of gold being stored, just like on Nibiru during stellar activation cycles. There would be large things. They'd have their coin circulation for their basic energy vampiring, but gold holds frequency, photosonic frequency. All right, more than just like, you can use it with electricity. This is photosonics. These are the light sound, the primal light sound frequencies. Gold is one of the elements that can hold tremendous amounts of them, and it can transmit them if you know how to use it right. The idea of making gold statues, Nibiru had massive gold statues that would hold huge amounts of standing scalar waves that the people in control of the statues would use to control the other people. Right now, gold is being collected and put away in very safe places on the planet, places that just happen to be connected to major grid lines in the planetary grids, right? Because gold holds frequency, and it can transmit whatever's put into it. If you transmit reversal, if you are on a planet and that planet has a reverse Merkaba, all the elements pick up that reverse Merkaba. So right now, gold is a very nice transmitter of reversal, of the reverse mathematical currents. So anyway, this is why I'm not going to do a workshop on money right now. There are considerations that need to be looked at. It goes into not just gold, but gold, silver, precious gems, diamonds, these kind of things. What do these things really do to us? What are these things? I mean, they look like pretty little things out here, but what is this really in our hologram? So there's going to be at some point a workshop that will deal with that, but that's not today, So anyway, to answer that.